5 great periods of hockey for the Tampa Bay Lightning this weekend, followed by one really bad one. We'll break down a weekend of mixed results on today's Locked on Lightning podcast.
You're Locked on Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked on Lightning your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Tampa Bay Lightning podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we want to begin with a shout out to our everydayers. Those of you who tune into every single show, every single day. We love you. We appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan, and I am joined by the Waffle House to my IHOP, Greg Stephen. Greg, welcome in, friend. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. A new week, a little mixed bag this past weekend, and I'm going to go with IHOP.
You want to trade? Okay, I can be Waffle House.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Waffle House.
I'm a big IHOP guy.
Really? Okay. I was, yeah. I don't know. I feel like Waffle House was always my college preference there. Maybe it was just the atmosphere.
Maybe.
Who doesn't love watching their waitress get in a brawl at 3 a.m? Fun story that actually happened one time. That's a different podcast, though. Yeah. Before we get into today's show, I want to mention we are sponsored today by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Greg. Mixed bag from this weekend. Of course, Battle of Florida. That was the one that everyone had circled on the calendar. And then the Vancouver Canucks. 5-6 of the weekend went great, Greg.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The weekend went unbelievable.
Uh-huh. I thought they looked fantastic in the Vancouver game too, which is crazy because it just became a disaster.
Yeah, up until the end. So let's do this. We are going to break down real quick, recap each game, and then we will get into plus minus from this whole weekend. So let's start with the Battle of Florida. Greg, big question everybody had going into this game was, were we going to see any more chaos? Were we going to go see any carryover from the way that last preseason game ended? And the answer was no, not really. Physical contest, but I thought it was pretty tame compared to what most of us were expecting. They seemed to leave all of it at the door.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So 1-1 all the way through the game. Do you want to say who scored the first goal, Greg?
Oh, it was my boy, Emil Lilleberg, popping off as usual.
The best defender on the team, according to Greg, Emil Lilleberg. Brad Marchand got a power play goal in the second to make it 1-1. And then here's where I love, what happens next. It's Jack Finley.
Yes.
Breaking the tie in the third period. Assists from Curtis Douglas and Scott Sabarin. That was the game-winning goal. Zemgus Girgensons added an empty netter right at the end. So 3-1 over Florida, Greg. Lightning striking first in this regular season series between these two.
Yeah. And honestly, this was the game I expected. I figured it'd be tight and close, and I expected a little bit of rough stuff, and we saw some physicality, I'd say. Nothing out of the ordinary of a regular hockey game, though.
Yeah. Maybe a couple of questionable hits here and there, but I really love the way that the Lightning responded. Somebody on Twitter kind of brought it up. It was kind of look the way a playoff game should.
Right.
You definitely saw physical play, nothing that really crossed the line. Although we'll talk about the Sam Bennett elbow coming up here in second segment. Maybe that's the one exception, but overall, a physical game, very defensive minded, very back and forth. You could tell both teams wanted to get some revenge on the score sheet, not necessarily with their fists. And I love the way that played. Great win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That goes into Sunday's game against the Vancouver Canucks. And again, Lightning come out on fire. 2-0 start for the Lightning in this one. They outshoot the Canucks 10-1 in the first period. It was 2-1 at the second intermission. I bring that up because if you see the final score, you're going to be asking yourself, what in God's name happened? 6 straight goals for the Canucks, Greg, including 5 in the third period. Complete collapse for the Lightning, and they lose this one 6-2.
Yeah. It's sad because, like I said earlier, they looked pretty good to me throughout most of this game. And even the first Canucks goal, it's like, they get a power play goal and it is what it is. But then it's just the third, they just fully deflated.
Yeah. I mean, you really wanted to see them come out with a better effort in that period. And
right. And the Canucks scored 3 of the goals within 2 minutes.
Yeah, you kind of have this jarring loss instead of, what should be 2 straight wins. So, yeah, a little bit of a bad end. But, as you said, they played so well for most of that game. You leave that second intermission thinking this was going to be a great overall weekend. And instead, here we are with a lot to talk about. Let's get into plus minus from this weekend. So we're doing a plus minus from, both games combined. Greg, when you look at this weekend as a whole, what's a plus? What's something you loved?
Something I love. I think Kuch has looked pretty good these past 2 games. I think I'm giving my plus to Nikita Kucherov. He's looked excellent out there. He came through in the Panthers game with a great pass to Lilleberg, my boy, who put that in. Yeah. And then in the Vancouver game, he notches one like really short side on a one-timer. Beautiful pass by Radish, by the way. So yeah, I'm going to go with Nikita Kucherov. I thought he's looked just so much better these last 2 games.
I agree. I think this is the first game in a while that we've really seen Nikita Kucherov look like, Nikita Kucherov. Mm-hmm. Greg, I am going to give a plus to the Lightning fourth line. Jack Finley, Curtis Gabriel, and Scott Sabourin. I feel like you look at those 3 guys heading into that Florida game and you're like, all right, there's the punchy line. They are going to be out there as the enforcers.
Yep.
They're going to be out there to deter the Panthers from trying anything. Maybe just a couple of shifts here and there, but I love the way they played in that game. A couple of key defensive plays late. Jack Finley had a big face-off win right at the end of the game. And of course, they got the game-winning goal. Jack Finley, his first of the season, coming from an assist from Curtis Douglas and Scott Sabourin. So
yeah,
the guys that we thought were maybe going to make an impact with their physical play, maybe like drop the gloves, be involved in a few fights, they wind up coming through on the score sheet in terms of the scoring. And I love to see that from the fourth line.
For sure. And Finley, his move, awesome. Great move. And he's so tall that it looks like it's in slow motion almost. Like he's got such a big reach. He took his time, bring that over, tuck it in. Great play by Finley.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to tell me between these 2 games, what was the biggest fight, I would not say Darren Radish was going to be the person.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. When I saw him drop, I was like, "Oh, okay, here we go."
Yeah, sure, man. And I want to point out, I thought they all had pretty good games in the Vancouver game as well. Yeah. All right, Greg. So give me your minus from this weekend.
It's the power play. 0 for 6 this weekend. Not so good, especially when you have Nikita Kucherov out there. And I don't want to harp on it too much, but I think some of the power plays actually look pretty good. They just didn't convert. But yeah, I mean, you gotta get one of those 6, right? At least. Yeah. You probably want 2 of them, but one at the bare minimum, I think, and that's going to be my minus.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like it feels like you have to get something going. Like you have to convert if you get those chances. And with the players that you have, it is very bizarre that the Lightning power play has kind of gotten out of the gate as cold as they have with the talent. Greg, my minus is just the third period from the Vancouver Canucks game. It's just the finish for this weekend because You come off that Florida game in which it was very much a playoff intensity, a playoff atmosphere. You could tell even in the Florida crowd that I think people were sitting on their edge of, sitting just a little bit forward, more towards the edge of their seats. There's definitely a buzz there. And you come into that with what I would say is an emotional win. Big win over your rival. We know what happened the last time these two teams saw each other. And you go into that Vancouver game playing so well. I mean, the Lightning were absolutely dominating.
Oh, yeah.
Both sides of the ice in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame that they couldn't finish the deal for the weekend. Because, you win that game, you come out of that with a win, and you're talking about the Lightning in a fantastic spot. Half the team out injured.
Right.
And 2 back-to-back very tough games. And if you leave this weekend 2-0, I think you have a different maybe perspective on where you are right now. Mm-hmm. And obviously I don't want to make that Vancouver loss too hyperbolic, but I think you look at them now with a little bit more urgency to fix a few things, urgency to kind of break down what happened. And I just think there's maybe a different mindset and positive mentality going into this next week if you had come out with that, that second win. So that's my minus.
Yeah, completely agree. And we'll dive into more in the next segment, but I have more to say about these games.
Yeah, I want to hear your take on maybe what went wrong for the Canucks game in particular, but I want to get more thoughts on the Florida game too. Again, lot to come up on today's show. Plus, this weekend we're doing power rankings for NHL rookies. Who do we think is our Calder pick so far? We'll dive into that all on today's Locked On Lightning when we come back. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Hockey season, it's officially in full swing, everybody. And nothing beats being in the arena for those opening month games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total nightmare. Between waiting in queues, all those surprise fees, and prices that somehow seem to jump right before you hit checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Whenever I want to go do anything that involves tickets, whether it's hockey, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy shows, theater, the first thing I do is open up Game Time. Instead of scrolling and trying to guess which sections have the best seats, I look at the zone deals. All I do is pick the section that I would like to sit in, and Game Time picks my seats for me, and I save big. One thing I love about Game Time is that I can see the view of the venue from my exact seats that I want before I buy. So I know I'm not going to get stuck behind a giant pole or anything. That's happened before. Thank you, Wrigley Field. And I love that Game Time shows me my all-in prices up front, so I'm not shocked by any surprise fees at the end. Right now, you can find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork and get into the game with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. We're back on Locked On Lightning. Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Stephen. Hey, we want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Lightning your first listen today. And we also want to thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. We're happy for all our everydayers and happy for all of you who tune in to see us. We really appreciate the support. Greg, we're talking about a mixed weekend for the Lightning. Obviously, big emotional win over the Florida Panthers. Followed it up with 2 really good periods of hockey against the Vancouver Canucks, and then just an absolute collapse in the third. Where do you want to start, my friend? Where do you want to dive into a little bit more to begin?
I think for me it's discipline, and I opened with my minus being the power play, but also the inverse is true too. You got to stop giving the other teams power plays. They gave 8 power plays, I think, this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. 5 to the Cats, and we double check, and
I
and
think they
3
had.
to the
I think they.
Canucks.
Yeah, it was definitely 3 in the Canucks.
Yeah, and I think that really hurt them. To be honest with you, I mean, the Panthers converted one, and look, Marchand's shot on that goal, by the way, unbelievable backhand to the top right corner, unbelievable. Like that's not a savable shot in my eyes. That is not Vassy. That is just a clean shot on the power play.
Yeah.
Flash into the Canucks game. You're up 2-0, and the next 2 goals are on the power play because you gave them a power play. That deflates your team. And look, I get it. There are situations where penalties are totally fine, especially in the Cats game. Like I know they got 5 power plays out of the Lightning, but at the same time, that game was very physical, and the Lightning had I think 4 as well, so it wasn't crazy. But then you look at the penalty list on the Canucks game, and it's like you got an interference in there, you got a bunch of 10 minutes in there, you got a holding, 2 holdings.
Mm-hmm.
It's just silly penalties. I think Sabrin was in the box for what looks like 16 minutes just in that game.
Well, he did have a thing of misconduct at the end. So.
He did. He had a 10-minute, but he had 3 2-minutes too. So that's tough. I mean, that's the discipline has gotta kind of get reeled in here because you keep giving good teams power plays, they're going to score on you, and you're going to lose the game.
But we talk about, discipline, and yeah, like there's some sloppy penalties throughout the weekend. But it's funny because in terms of discipline, I go back to that Florida game, and I actually say I kind of applaud the restraint for the Lightning here a little bit. And that's something I really want to talk about because that was what everybody was talking about. This is a reason like people around the NHL were tuning in for this game because they're like, this is crazy. Like there's unfinished business across the board. Like obviously we saw a couple of times where Ekblad and Sabrin were kind of like yapping behind the play.
Yeah, they're gelling.
But obviously I think the Panthers felt even with the, the fines and suspensions from the NHL, maybe there was, Scott Sabrin had a bell to answer for, the Ekblad situation. I think a lot of Lightning fans thought that, there are some people on the Panthers that had bell to answer, Carter Hagel. A lot of people weren't happy, with the hit that kept Gergensons out at the beginning of the year. I think a lot of people were still maybe had AJ Greer in their sights.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a lot of like, I think people are coming into this game like, what's going to happen? Like, how are we going to answer what happened in the preseason? And I thought the Lightning, I'm going to give credit, the Panthers too, did a great job of leaving it at the door and just letting the magnitude of the game speak for itself. We want to win this game because it's a rivalry game and we're both trying to build some momentum and gain some ground in the standings here. It's a playoff atmosphere. These are 2 teams that can very well be playing in the postseason. And I thought the restraint that both teams showed in playing physical, but not necessarily crossing that line and devolving into chaos. I thought both teams handled that pretty well.
Completely agree. And we got to watch a hockey game and not a fight, right? So that's a plus. And I think you touched on it. I applaud both teams for just like keeping this within reason. This could very well have been a bloodbath for sure. Like you listed so many different incidents that are kind of still maybe unresolved.
And can I add one more?
Yeah.
First period, Sam Bennett elbowing on Nikita Kucherov. It sure looked, Greg. It sure looked like that was Sam Bennett intentionally just wheeling back and throwing an elbow in Kucherov's direction.
I'm with you there. I think Kuch milked it a little bit, but he took an elbow to the face. So, that's what it is.
Elbow to the face.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on is I think I love Dastu, but I think these last 2 games, he hasn't looked his best. He hasn't looked his sharpest. I think since he started in that game last week, was that against who was that against? The Capitals? I can't remember anymore. Mm-hmm. But ever since that game, he hasn't looked quite the caliber he was prior to that. And I'm not saying he's bad by any means, but I think he's just kind of in a cold slump right now. He was on the ice for a couple of things, and also I think he had 2 penalties in the Cats game, if I'm not mistaken. He cross-checked AJ Greer. I think he roughed Aaron Ekblad. But yeah, just not his best 2 games. Did his job though. I mean, they got the job done against Florida. Flashing to the Canucks game, I've seen so much JoJo hate, and realistically, I don't see it being his fault. I don't think I really saw a goal that I would be fully convinced was entirely on him. This isn't like the Vasi falling over type criticism, you know. I think a couple were potentially deflected, and a lot of screens in front of him for those 3 quick ones.
Yeah.
So faulting JoJo for this loss, I think, is silly. I don't think that's the right avenue to criticize here.
Right.
I think a lot of it is special teams for me. And then again, you look at the dot, it was close to 50-50, but they just keep losing the faceoffs, and it's hurting them for sure. I mean, they got crushed in the Florida game, and they were better in the next one, but still not elite, right?
Yeah. There's definitely a few things to clean up, I think, from especially that third period. Because I thought you're right. You know, I don't think there's any like one goal where you're like, well, like Jonas Johansson, what are you doing there? But I do think there was a lot of, you know, I would put this more on the team in front of him. Maybe not, you know, taking advantage of clearing the puck, maybe not possessing the puck, and maybe not being a little bit more aggressive and trying to keep the Canucks from setting up. So
right, and moving the guys in front of the net that are screening, you know, his vision. That happened at least twice in that game, and I think, you know, defenseman moves that guy out of the way, it's a different save.
Yeah. Couple other quick notes, real quick. Brandon Hagel not in the lineup Saturday. John Cooper kind of says we don't know what his timeline is. He could be out for a month. He could be out for a day. We just don't know. Didn't sound great.
Yeah.
Then Brandon Hagel comes back yesterday. Brandon Hagel is back and gets an assist in 15 minutes in the Vancouver game. So good to see Hagel back on the ice, and good to see him, you know, coming through with an immediate offensive impact. Jacob Pelletier makes his debut in that Florida game in Hagel's stead. Not a lot of ice time, but I thought when he was out there, he looked pretty impactful, Greg.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I thought he looked fluid out there and comfortable, and, you know, with more time, he'll be good. One last point I want to make is Braden Point, man. He still looks not so hot.
Yeah. I mean, at what point do we kind of say there's something going on here?
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of there with you. He picked up an assist on the first Cooch goal, but it wasn't even really. It was a secondary assist. So
yeah,
I think the primary assist from Radish was awesome, and it's not like Point didn't help set that up, but, you know, it wasn't like a flashy play by him by any means. So I don't know. He hasn't looked himself, and I recall specifically he had an opportunity, basically a 1-on-0, and he just missed the net. And I just don't recall seeing Braden Point miss the net like that. I'd rather him hit the goaltender, if anything, you know, maybe create a rebound or something. But he just like was shooting wide, and I was kind of sitting there like, this is the guy that puts this in almost every time for this team, and now it doesn't look that way.
Yeah, whether it's confidence, whether it's just, you know, a case of the yips, or whether there's maybe an injury or something going on. I'm with you. I think at some point you kind of have to ask. There might be something to be concerned about there. But
yeah,
you know, we obviously also know Braden Point, so this is a guy that can turn it on a dime very fast.
100%.
A couple of interesting games, to say the least. Would love to be talking about 2 wins right now, but obviously I think I'm going to take a step back and say, you know what, the Lightning played 5 really good periods of hockey this weekend, and at the end of the day, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
like, I think I hate that the Canucks loss happened, but I'm also happy with, you know, that 5-6 of the periods we saw this weekend were really solid.
Yeah, exactly. And the win against Florida is a 4-point division swing, and that's big. So I'd rather take that win than the Canucks win.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Hey, let's get to some NHL talk, shall we? On today's Monday Power Rankings, we're going to look at the 3 best rookies in the NHL right now. I know both of us have some opinions on that one, so let's dive in when we come back. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's not just hockey that's back, folks. The NBA is in full swing. And whether you're a fan of the Magic, the Heat, or another team around the association, no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're back on Locked On Lightning. Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Steven. And Greg, let's talk about some young guns. On today's Power Rankings, we're going to be ranking our top 3 NHL rookies so far this season. So, Greg, let's kick it off at the top with number 1. And I think
Matthew Schaefer.
You and I both have the same number 1. So, yeah, let's dive into the season that Matthew Schaefer is having for the New York Islanders. 15 points in 19 games, 7 goals, 8 assists. If I told you this was a rookie defenseman who's I think just turned 18 not too long ago,
Yep.
you would say there's absolutely no way an 18-year-old is having that big of an impact on defense.
Right.
The NHL right now.
Absolutely. And he looks so comfortable out there. And I think the most impressive part is that he leads all rookies in goals. It's not even just like
he's a
straight
defenseman.
assists. Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable talent. Looks comfortable. He's really boosted the Islanders tremendously. Let me throw in a fun tidbit for you that you could probably predict.
Go ahead.
He's on my fantasy team. And it's just
God,
great.
Greg. Well,
it's just great.
That's really his highlight of the year.
Oh, man. It's good to be me in the fantasy world, you know?
Yeah, you did send me your fantasy team, and you're pretty stacked. I do want to put it out there. No, the Matthew Schaefer, and look, this came up in Hot Take Tuesday a while back when we were talking about it, but I think Matthew Schaefer, if we do this show 15 years from now, we're going to be talking about him as maybe one of the top 3 defensemen of our generation.
Wow.
Like that we've seen. Yeah. I mean, I think he's that good. I think he's going to wind up being Cale Makar good. Yeah. I don't want to jump the line, but I mean, just everything I've seen from him so far this season, everything I've, seen him in juniors. I mean, he has handled just everything with such poise. He's amazing with the puck, and he's only going to get better. He's very smart for an 18-year-old. He makes plays that you see, people literally twice his age make on a day-to-day basis. I just think he's going to be one of the best defensemen in this game, 5 or 15 years down the road when we're done talking about it. I
completely agree. He looks amazing.
Yeah. Here's where I think our list might branch off a little bit, Greg. Who's number 2?
For me, it's Demidov. And it looks funny because I'm just kind of going in the stats order right now, but Demidov's a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a goal scorer. He's a passer. Like, he does everything. He looks super comfortable out there. And you add him to I'm going to call it a stacked Canadiens team at this point because they are good. He's thriving. And I think just like with Schaefer, in a few years, we're going to be talking about him because he's going to be a top 10 NHLer.
I agree with that. I love watching Demidov play. There's somebody that I'm putting just a bit ahead of him.
Okay.
And that is Beckett Seneke.
Yeah.
From the Anaheim Ducks, a 19-year-old, a guy that I think not a lot of people had sort of on their radar as making a big impact right away. I mean, he was third overall pick from a couple of years ago, but I don't think anybody kind of had him circled as, okay, this is the year that Beckett Seneke is really breaking out. And instead is having a great year with Anaheim, 6 goals, 6 assists. But I think the more impressive thing is he's getting a lot of ice time, averaging almost 17 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So, he's not just, coming in and kind of, doing spot duty or anything like that. He's been one of the Ducks players that Anaheim's putting out there, for a lot of shifts.
Oh yeah, he's consistently out there for sure.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you this: does that mean you have Demidov at 3?
Okay, so it feels like I should have Demidov at 3.
Oh,
but and if we were doing just a straight up top 3, yes. But there's somebody else that I want to give a shout out to that I think deserves some recognition, and that's Artem Lashunov.
Okay.
From the Chicago Blackhawks. We talk about Matthew Schaefer doing what he has been doing as a rookie. Well, look at Lashunov, 10 assists so far at 17 games played. That's Victor Hedman numbers, my friend.
It is.
Yeah, and he's doing it. He just turned 20, I think, like a week ago.
Right.
Number 2 overall pick from 2024. This is, again, like a Chicago Blackhawks team in which if you're young, you're probably going to have to handle a lot of the early burden. And you look at how well the Blackhawks have been playing this year. It's because a lot of the young guys have stepped up. And that's because Lashunov has stepped up and is starting to look more and more like a true number 1 defenseman, like a lot of people are doing too. Not a lot of, he's not getting like number 1 ice time minutes like Matthew Schaefer is.
Right.
But I think, Jeff Blashill, Lightning assistant coach from the last couple of years, has gone up there and has done really well about getting him in situations that maximize his opportunities. So he's getting like 17 minutes of ice time, but he's also getting good power play minutes. I think they're very careful about how they're using him, and they've really been able to maximize Lashunov so far. So yeah, I do think that is a guy that needs a little bit of a shout out, Greg.
Perfect. Love that. And I'm going to throw my number 3 out there then to finish this up.
Go ahead.
How about Matthew Wood? I mean,
Nashville Predators.
Predators. They do not look good at all. And he does. He had a hat trick against the Rangers. Unbelievable. Yeah. He's sitting at 10 points right now in 13 games. Mm-hmm. Defensively seems fairly strong. He's only -1, so that's not unreasonable by any means. And recently, he's been skating some more time. I think they kind of had him around the 12, 13-minute marker, but in his last 3, he skated 15, 15, 17. So they're obviously trusting him a lot more. And, God, to be on the Predators and do this, I think is pretty incredible as a young guy.
Yeah, he skated, he started skating with Philip Forsberg a little bit. I think before that he was skating with Stamkos a little bit. It's impressive because if you know anything about the Nashville Predators, the 2 kind of hitches in their giddy up over the past decade would be, 1, they can't develop high-end young forward talent. Mm-hmm. And 2, they don't have the best track record of putting young players in high-end situations in the lineup right away. It's been a little bit of a fight. So the fact that Matthew Wood has been able to come out and look pretty solid, I agree with you, is really good, especially because I think there was some concern around the Predators fan base as far back as a year ago that maybe Matthew Wood wasn't developing as well as they had hoped. So yeah, I mean, if he can keep it going, that's a good tool for the Nashville Predators to have.
For sure.
Yeah. Hey, for those of you who listen to Locked On Lightning, big fans of the show, again, we are happy for every piece of the support that we get, and we now have a way to honor you guys. So Greg, you want to tell them about the Fan of the Week videos that we're about to have on YouTube?
Yeah, so I kind of converted Fan of the Week. I've had a lot of interest in recent weeks. So we're converting Fan of the Week to just what I'm calling for now Thunder Chat. And what that is basically we have people come on the show. We talk about whatever you want to talk about with the Lightning. Maybe you had a cool experience with them. Maybe you just have a lot of hot takes. anything you want to talk about, you send me a DM. We'll get you on the show. And I'm going to post these videos regularly moving forward in a playlist that we are going to have on YouTube as soon as later today.
Yeah. And these are, this is a YouTube exclusive content. You can find these on social media too. This is just a good way to interact with you guys. We want to hear your takes. We kind of want to have the pulse of the fan base in our mind as we put these shows together. So we're looking forward to meeting more of you. We're looking forward to chatting with you. Greg has done a fantastic job of putting these together. And I know that, this is going to be a fun thing for, hopefully you guys and definitely us moving forward. So yeah, be sure.
Yeah, and look, it's a good way to connect with other Bolts fans too,
Exactly. Yeah. This is going to be really fun to, to put online a little bit. So be sure to keep an eye out on our YouTube page. I believe, Greg, we said later today, I believe is when we're going to launch this bad boy.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to probably post at least 2 or 3 of them today, and I'll trickle the rest of them out over this week.
Sick. Well, yeah. And if you want to be involved, let Greg or I know. In terms of social media, we are on Instagram, we're on TikTok, Twitter, kind of, although we're starting to phase that out. Drop us a line there. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening in on your favorite podcasting platform. Not only helps us out a little bit with our numbers, but it helps you guys know when we have new content out for you. So stay in the know. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Lightning. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. Back with a new episode tomorrow. We'll see you then.